All right, back again on the Fantasy Football Podcast after a very slow Trade-A-Palooza 2 last night. Looking at where we're at headed into Week 10. So starting with the waivers, Justin spent $45 on Seneca Wallace. It'll be interesting to see if this is a good move for him. I was at the game. I can tell you firsthand Seneca Wallace looked absolutely terrible. But, I mean, he is the starting quarterback for the Packers. You know, it depends how long Rodgers is going to be out, but Wallace will definitely be getting the reps. So might be, in our quarterback heavy league, obviously, any starting quarterback is worthwhile. Krause has switched his style now from shedding his defense as a snake sheds its skin into shedding his entire bench as a snake sheds its skin. In the last 2 weeks, Krause has added and dropped an insane 29 players. Players included in this gangbang of transactions include Sean Green, Chris Obanaya, Chris Durham, and the always indispensable Vincent Brown. So that's pretty much it. Again, Trade-A-Palooza 2 was pretty quiet last night. I was there. Outside of the fake trades that were made, nothing actually, in fact, changed hands. So we'll get into the power rankings. Coming in dead last, number 12, Andrew Smith. Since this podcast was last recorded, Smith actually did pick up his first 2 wins of the year. So that means he's avoided a fruiting. But despite the fact that mangoes won't be whizzing by his head this March, Smith is still in a little bit of trouble. He's still a game back in clown position, and he's 4 games back of Krause for third to last. So, he's definitely the odds-on favorite at this point. In a strange coincidence, Smith actually has also gotten totally crushed in points allowed. But don't feel too bad for him, as he is currently 372 points off of Ariel's total points lead. So things are looking pretty grim for Smith. It's nice to know that he won't be the subject of a fruiting, but still obviously would like to stack up a few more wins. Coming in at 11, Andrew Denenberg. D-Berg, at one point this year, I kind of seem to remember thinking that his team would be pretty good, but I was way off. I was wrong. He has quickly fallen off the map. He's in strong position to become our first repeat clown. Despite finally getting a good showing from Chris Johnson, Mike Glennon was Denenberg's only other double-digit scorer. He got crushed by me and Deutsch last week. Doesn't get much easier for him. He gets Oaks and Plotzker this week. So D's best strategy now is really to accumulate a few more wins and head into the Clown Bowl with a serious handicap. In at number 10, John Krause. Krause, his championship dreams obviously faded almost instantaneously this year as we got underway, but he does, he has appeared to successfully pull himself out of the clown conversation, which is saying something considering where his team was at. He's now amassed 6 total wins, and if you think Smith or Denenberg are going to surpass 3 or more wins in the remaining weeks, you're not watching the same fantasy league as me. Krause can continue to ride Ben Roethlisberger, Eddie Lacy, and rest comfortably in non-clown mediocrity this year. So I would say well done, Krause. I think people felt pretty comfortable saying you were a lock for clown, and I would say now you're almost a lock to avoid it. So way to go. In at number 9, Bootsy. Bootsy's team has been up and down this year. Similar to Krause, he seems comfortably headed towards a mid-grade finish. He's never quite sucked enough to enter the clown conversation. He has had a couple of half-aborted attempts at selling out. He has actually amassed a pretty good amount of auction money towards 2014. Case Keenum has proven to be a pretty viable quarterback this year, and E.J. Manuel's coming back, so Bootsy actually might be able to play spoiler down the stretch. Number 8, Jason Plotzker. Plotzker's team and my team are a bit of a toss-up. Because I bested him last week and because I know it'll piss him off, I've slotted him 8th this week and myself 7th. Gronkowski's gotten back up to speed very quickly from his injury. Plotzker shrewdly added potential waiver pickup of the year Jordan Reed a few weeks back, with the wild card very likely coming out of Schindler's, and Plotzker trailing Oaks by 5 games. It appears Plotzker is not destined for the playoffs. Coming in at number 7, myself, you can say almost the exact same things about my team I just said about Plotzker's, except for the fact that I do have one more win, which I got over him last week, so I'm in 7th. With 9 wins at this point, I would say very comfortably that both the Clown Bowl and the playoffs seem out of reach. Number 6, Brian Deutsch. In a very tight Schindler's division, Brian has less wins than his brother and significantly less total points than Ariel. So Brian's going to need to do something pretty serious to overcome both of those deficits. Terrell Pryor has achieved full wildcard status of not knowing if he's going to put up 0 points or 25 points. That type of instability is normally a bad thing. I would say the early return of Jay Cutler is definitely positive news for Deutsch, but I don't think that he has the firepower necessarily to fight for a division title this year. In at number 5, Ben Boris. Ben suffered one of the most gut-wrenching losses we've seen in some time last week. His team performed quite well during Peyton Manning's bye week, and with the exception of Arian Foster, of course, who pulled a 2011 Marshawn Lynch and didn't log a single carry despite being active for a game and announced as the starter. Ben ended up losing the cross by 0.37 points, meaning that Vincent Brown's, the aforementioned Vincent Brown, his 17 receiving yards made the difference in this matchup. It's a tough one for Ben, but he's got Peyton Manning coming back, and he still doubled Smith's points last week, more than doubled. So Ben's in very close competition with his brother for a MAM title. Speaking of the MAM title, in at number 4 is Billy Boris, old bad luck Billy. He is the odds-on favorite for the MAM division right now. Darren Sproles and Julius Thomas have appeared to survive some injury scares, which is good news for Billy because DeMarco Murray has just been playing like shit. Matt Stafford's having a great year. Billy's acquisition of him is looking pretty smart, so he's going to need a bit more from the receiver position to hold off Ben, but I would say Billy's pretty comfortably in the driver's seat. In at number 3, Justin Deutsch. So, let's all take a moment, recognize that Justin, after 2 years of wretched performance since being an expansion team, has made intelligent keeper decisions, shrewd trades, drafted well, and he's put together a very strong team. He's been leading a tough Schindler's division all year. A quick look at his schedule shows that Marshawn Lynch and Russell Wilson, who are his 2 best players, are both on bye in Week 12 when Justy plays his brother Billy. I mean, his brother and Billy. If his brother were Billy, that would be very uncomfortable. If he does go 0-2 that week, Brian may be able to, his brother Brian may be able to leapfrog him. In the meantime, though, Justin's team is looking pretty strong. In at number 2, Andrew Oakes. For the first time in months, Oakes has dropped out of the top spot. He still has a dominant lead in the Lane Bryant division. He has a very strong roster, but he has stumbled a bit in the past few weeks. If you add to that the fact that Aaron Rodgers, his best player, is potentially out for the remainder of the fantasy regular season, Oakes is in a little bit of trouble. So I would say, just because of what he's done so far, Oakes will pretty much be in the playoffs, no doubt. But his ability to beat some of the top teams, the other top teams, is definitely being tested. In at number 1, Ariel Glicksberg. Congrats to Ariel for dethroning Oakes. He may only be tied for the 3rd best record in the league, but he has a solid lead in total points, and he has a really dangerous roster. I would say Cam Newton looks poised to finish the year as a top 5 fantasy scorer. Alfred Morris and Andre Johnson both are seriously picking up speed after pretty slow starts. If Percy Harvin can come back with a vengeance, I would say Ariel's team is going to be pretty difficult to beat. All right, time to open up the old mailbag. Thank you for those who contributed. Smith writes, all right, how about this? Which would you rather have? A license to drink and drive, or a license to possess or use drugs? I would say this is a great question. Both options give a ton of potential. Ultimately, I'd have to say that a license to drink and drive would be the better choice, because I could save thousands a year on cab fares, and furthermore, I could drive around all my friends and drink for free. If I had a license to possess and use drugs, it'd be a lot of fun, but only for about 2 months, as I obviously would overdose on whippets. All right, next question. This is a long one actually that we all got a preview of. As the highest rated, this is it. As the highest rated league member in the entertainment categories, I think we all must defer to your assessment of the comedic value of antics. What makes something funny? Misdirection? Like you expect one thing but get another? Puns? Classic. I think puns are funny. Getting drunk makes you smile, but being drunk is not funny in and of itself. Oh, wise entertainer, is it funny to send out a bunch of trades, in quotations, in borderline violation of league rules just to get confused and mildly annoyed responses from the rest of the league? Is that the kind of comedy that CA should embrace and encourage? Please answer directly to these trade-a-paloozers. Next question. Who do you see winning Schindler's and MAM division, assuming Oakes has Lane Bryant locked up? Do you still think Oakes is a lock for the Super Bowl, given his injuries? With that injury risk ever present in the NFL, was it a good idea for him to sell out next year to move his team from great, or would it have been a good idea for him to sell out for next year to move his team from great to super great at the auction trade deadline? This means he gave up 2 seasons, last year and the next, for the present, which we know is at least not guaranteed, and in Kraus land is totally based on luck. Ben asked me to add a little asterisk here saying Trade-a-Paloozers is a registered trademark of Go Banana Incorporated, may not be repeated or duplicated, and the meaning and implications of the word may not be disseminated without my implied oral consent. Well, Ben, I will admit that, I too thought those trades were real until I arrived at Stout and found out that they were not. I actually did find the idea of fake trades to be pretty humorous once I arrived. I instantly started thinking about how I could get in on some of the fun. We all decided that it would be pretty funny for me to have bought back in and trade away the $100 auction dollars I acquired this year by selling out, by buying some substandard players, make a late run at this year. But that being said, Bootsy and Smith's teams there's a plane flying over. I'm outside of Toyota Park again, and there's a plane flying over, making it really loud, so I don't know how well this is coming across, but what I was saying is that we decided it'd be pretty funny for me to try and buy back in and trade away the auction money I had acquired, but after looking over Bootsy and Smith's rosters, they were so devoid of talent that the premise never would have been believable, and the idea was dismissed. What I think is pretty funny is when someone really buys into the perceived character that we created for them. So, for example, Ben, when you rip into a rage-fueled rant, or when Oaks drinks himself into another dimension, or when Plotzker makes some hilarious four-figure bet on Chinese Taipei in the Little League World Series, that's what I find funny. So I think being a generation that was raised on Seinfeld has made us all thirst to fill particular roles and specific characters, and I think we do a pretty good job of it. To address your league-specific questions, I agree that Oaks winning the Lane Bryant division is the lock of the century. It's pretty much decided already. I think that Ariel will come from behind to win Schindler's, and with Justin doing just enough to claim the wild card, I think Mam is pretty much a toss-up between you and your brother. I don't really know how to call it. Honestly, if I did have to guess, I suppose I would say Billy, and then, obviously anything could happen down the stretch. As far as Oaks is concerned, he better hope that he wins this year because he pretty much has sold out and seems poised to enter Krausland next season. I am secretly, however, hoping that he does not win because I think Oaks would be the best league's greatest clown without question. Finally, this is a two-parter. If you could trade lives with anyone in the league, who would it be? Things to consider: family genealogy, future earning potential, health, overall level of happiness, skill set, plus all the other stuff from Plotzker's ranking system. This question may have been asked before. If so, still want to hear your 2013 answer. 2, if they made a 30 for 30 about our league in 2025 and 11 of us are interviewed in the film, who's left out and why? Choices are the obvious ones. Dead, no longer in jail. No longer in league, in jail. Didn't want to relive painful memories of Clown Night, a la Chris Webber sitting out the Fab Five documentary. As well as less obvious ones: join the military, join the Peace Corps, couldn't get off work to do the interview, or other. To address and that's from Andrew Denenberg, who is a constant mailbag supporter. In regards to your first question, Denenberg, this question has never been asked before. I don't seem to remember it really. I would say it would take a mind only as twisted and isolated as yours to come up with it. My initial reaction is to vomit at the thought of becoming any other person in this league, but ultimately, if I did have to choose, I would select Justin Deutsch. That's simply because he has 2 years left, at least, with no responsibilities at all, and he has the highest probability of banging college girls, so I think that one's pretty simple. To address your second question, I feel like a documentary about our league would be pretty wonderful, especially if we could secure a narrator who is obscure, but not too obscure, someone like Jeff Goldblum or Kevin Spacey, something like that. You don't want to go with Alec Baldwin, he's played out. I would say the documentary could use old podcasts for content. The climax, the most dramatic part, would be coverage of our 2013 draft when Plotzker lost his hearing to a stripper and Justin tearfully avoided a lap dance. I would say the interview with Holly the stripper would definitely be the most emotional part. Seeing as how it would only be 12 years from now, I can imagine all league members would participate except potentially you, having quit the league after years and years of unanswered mailbag questions. All right, and to close it out, we'll do a quick preview of next week. Justin, third in the power rankings, plays Smith and Denenberg, and could put a little bit of distance between him and Ariel if Ariel can't beat both myself and Deutsch. Oaks has a good opportunity to further grow his Lane Bryant lead with matchups against Bootsy and Plotzker. So that does it for the podcast. Thanks for listening. Thanks for participating in Tradapalooza 2, and we'll see you on Sunday.